The icy bottom of a glass collisioned against the solid wood desk, producing a crisp, light ring. Fine droplets slid slowly down the glass wall, leaving a small damp patch on the dark surface. My fingers pressed against the glass, and I lowered my gaze to the financing signing confirmation email that popped up on the computer screen. The timestamp froze clearly 3 days later, at 2 p.m, in the top-floor conference hall of the Platinum Joy International Hotel. At this moment, I confirmed that I had been reborn. I was reborn at the critical moment when the intelligent cloud project I had devoted 2 years of effort to refining was about to secure financing, and 3 days before my boyfriend Alan completely stole all my result and rewrote the trajectories of our lives. The ending of my previous life replayed clearly before my eyes, every scene tangible and within reach. I exhausted all my savings, gave up all personal life, endured countless sleepless nights, built the entire project architecture from scratch, hammered out hundreds of thousands of lines of core code, repeatedly polished the business plan, iterated product functions, and coordinated market research, forcefully turning an initially overlooked startup into something admired by top-tier capital, poised for 10 million level financing. Yet all the glory and result were ultimately attributed to Alan. On the signing day, he exploited my complete trust in him to covertly replace the company registration documents, using the temporary corporate authority I had granted to quietly transfer the project, equity, and financing proceeds to his own name. After the financing landed, he transformed into a rising entrepreneurial dark horse, giving industry interviews, winning startup awards, coordinating top resources, reaping wealth and fame. Basking in glory. And I was abandoned by him under the pretext of a relationship dispute, kicked out of the company I had founded with my own hands, exhausted to the point of illness, carrying enormous debt from early project costs, ultimately impoverished and disappeared from the city. It wasn't until the moment just before my death that I learned that the seemingly impulsive power grab was not a momentary greed, but a long-planned scam. From the early stages of the project's inception, Alan had secretly colluded with Carter, the investment liaison for this financing. The two had long since aligned their interests, one responsible for feigning companionship and extracting core resources, the other for controlling the financing process and facilitating the coup. From start to finish, I had only been the most foolish, most innocent stepping stone in their meticulously laid plan. My fingertips squeezed the cool glass, and I looked around the office. This startup office, barely 100 square meters, was the starting point I stubbornly leased as my entrepreneurial ground. Desks, chairs, equipment, office supplies, and startup funds all came from my personal savings. At this moment, the outside world was growing dim, city neon lights flickering to life. The workstation across the desk sat empty. Alan had just left early under the pretense of coordinating with the investor. According to the previous life's trajectory, he was not coordinating work at this moment but privately meeting Carter to finalize the ultimate power grab details on signing day, discussing how to erase all traces of me from the project after signing. In this life, I would not give them any more chances. I raised my hand to close the email pop-up on the screen, leaving no browsing records, then opened the encrypted folder deep in the computer. And began typing rapidly to comb through all the core materials one by one. The whole process was carried out with calm, without a moment of hesitation, precisely drawing up all original drafts of the project from its inception to the present. The first document was the Project Initiation Filing Receipt, officially issued by the Market Regulation Department, clearly recording the initial initiator of the project as myself alone. All initiation materials, review records, and filing archives were my sole real name information, the first core legal credential I held. The second part is the complete core technology source code manuscript, including 3 versions, the initial version, the iterative version, and the final version. It comes with timestamps for each modification, operation logs, and cloud backup records. All original creation traces are clearly verifiable, completely different from the reduced version of code that Alan can only view. The third part is the original manuscript of the complete business plan, market research data, user testing reports, and feasibility analysis for product implementation. All data drafts, survey questionnaires, and statistical forms are archived, and each document can precisely correspond to my creation time and work trajectory. I meticulously verify the integrity of the files, re-encrypt and back up all core materials, synchronize and upload them to 3 different private cloud accounts, and also copy 3 physical USB drives, storing them in 3 separate private locations to completely prevent loss, tampering, or theft of the data. After finishing all this, I open the company equity and corporate registration system and calmly review all vulnerabilities from my previous life. When the previous company was registered, out of trust between lovers and for convenience in jointly handling matters, I registered Alan as a co-founder, granting him 50% virtual equity and temporary corporate operation rights. It was precisely this seemingly thoughtful gesture that became the biggest loophole for him to drain the company and steal the result later. He used his temporary corporate authority to secretly modify the equity ownership agreement, delete my core registration information, and with the help of the investors, smoothly completed capital docking, ultimately pocketing all the proceeds. I perused the system access logs one by one and clearly saw all of Alan's actions over the past month. He frequently logs into the backend, repeatedly reviews the equity change process, explanations of corporate authority, and the rules for fund arrivals, and he tried several times to modify core registration data, but was deterred by the ultimate permissions I had set and could not succeed for the time being. Every trace confirms that this plunder has been planned for a long time. Once the signing ceremony 3 days later lands, the net will be fully closed. I did not immediately modify any information, nor remove his permissions, and I did not reveal any signs of anomaly. The timing isn't right yet. Acting too early would just rattle the snake, alert Alan and Carter, and might even terminate financing cooperation, disrupting all my counterplot arrangements. What I need is not a hasty stop-loss, but precise, thorough, and crushing them completely so they have no chance to turn the tables. I want to make them walk into this meticulously planned scam with full confidence, only to fall into the abyss they themselves dug. At 7 in the evening, a faint creak came from the office door lock, and Alan pushed the door open. He wore a clean casual suit, his hairstyle neatly groomed, with a just right gentle smile on his face. No different from the hypocritically gentle look I remember from my previous life. He casually set a milk tea on my desk, naturally reached out to tousle my hair, his voice soft and indulgent, with no hint of a flaw. "You've been busy for so long and must be exhausted, right? I got you a milk tea you like. I just finished coordinating with the investors, and the signing ceremony in 3 days is all set. We're about to get to the head." I looked up at him, my expression calm and steady, without the wholehearted joy and anticipation of my previous life, and without any hatred or estrangement either, only a faint nod, with a light, unobtrusive smile. "Thank you for your hard work." Alan pulled out the chair beside me and sat down, his gaze casually sweeping over my computer screen, trying to inspect the contents of the file I was handling. My fingertips moved slightly, the mouse clicked to minimize the page, and the whole motion was natural and smooth, without any deliberate evasion, perfectly reproducing the past focused on work, unguarded demeanor. "Let me tell you something." Alan turned his head to the side, his tone relaxed, with a negotiating edge, exactly the same as before the power grab in the previous life. "Before signing, the investor needs to verify the final version of the project source code and the business plan. To avoid any procedural errors, you send me all the original materials you have tomorrow, and I'll coordinate it all. This will be more efficient and less prone to problems." I looked at his feigned openness, secretly greedy eyes, and there was not the slightest abnormality. I softly replied, "Okay, I'll organize everything and send it to you tomorrow." With my answer, a trace of unnoticeable ease and smugness flashed in Alan's eyes, and the smile on his face became even gentler. He was completely convinced that I was still the naive, trusting, unguarded girlfriend who remained under his control from start to finish. He continued to pretend to be relaxed as he talked about post-signing plans, painting a false future blueprint. After the financing lands, they would move to a bigger office, expand the team, and take me along to develop steadily and live a stable life. I listened quietly, nodding at times, fully cooperating in the performance, letting him bask in the dream of imminent success and fame. That night at 9, Alan and I left the office building together. The night enveloped the entire startup district. The storefronts along the street were brightly lit, and most passers-by were entrepreneurs and staff who had finished overtime. Alan walked beside me, continuing to display a gentle and considerate demeanor, meticulously attentive throughout, deliberately creating a couple image of fighting side by side and unwavering support. He opened the car door to help me get in, and on the way to the apartment, he kept reviewing the signing process, his words emphasizing his own contributions. He said the investor Cater greatly valued this collaboration, that he had handled all coordination and negotiations, and even feigned a reminder that the professional aspects of future financing would be complicated, so I didn't need to worry about them and could just wait for the result. I sat in the front passenger seat, looking ahead at the road, staying quiet and listening, occasionally responding softly, with no objections. The car pulled into the apartment's underground garage and stopped. Alan turned to look at me, his tone carrying a deliberately pampering softness, continuing the daytime rhetoric. "Baby, remember to pack and send me tomorrow the project source code, the final version of the business plan, and all filing documents. The investor's final review only recognizes one point of contact. I'll compile and submit everything here, and only then can the signing process be flawless. After financing lands, you just enjoy the result, I'll handle the company's affairs." His rhetoric layered one thing on top of another, soothing me while covertly demanding all of my core creative result, completely replicating the full pre-power grab routine from the previous life. I turned to the side, unbuckling my seatbelt with a relaxed, natural motion, my tone flat and obedient. "No problem, I'll tidy everything and send it to you first thing tomorrow morning." As soon as the words fell, the calculated gleam in Alan's eyes was completely hidden behind a gentle smile, and there was no more wariness. He was confident that I was naive, basking in the joy of imminent entrepreneurial success, with no guard against him, already fully under his control. After we got off the car, I followed him into the apartment elevator. This high-rise apartment was adjacent to the office building, a 5-minute walk away. It was the place I rented alone 2 years ago to convenient overnight work and to support project progress during the early stages of my startup, and Alan had never paid a single cent over these 2 years, living there rent-free year-round, comfortably taking advantage of the convenience my hard work had brought. Back at the apartment, Alan leaned straight on the sofa and pulled out his phone to reply to messages. My peripheral vision swept the screen and clearly saw that he was chatting with Cater, confirming the receipt time for the documents and arranging, after receiving the full project materials, to pre-lap the change of ownership entry at the signing site. I didn't linger to peek. I walked straight into the study, opened the office computer, and kept my actions calm, pretending to tidy the project material as he had requested. I created a new folder dedicated to delivering to Alan, containing only the edited versions of files with the core algorithms, underlying logic, and raw data removed, and the business plan also kept only the superficial market analysis and basic implementation framework, deleting the most core profit model, technical barriers, and exclusive operation plan. The entire set of materials looked complete, but in fact had no core value and could not support project implementation, nor serve as a basis for confirmation of ownership rights. At the same time, I opened another standby recording device, placed it in a hidden corner of the study, and started recording and archiving for the entire process. The device had high pixel quality and full sound capture, capable of precisely recording all internal conversations. 10 minutes later, Alan walked into the study, leaned over to look at my computer screen, reached out to scroll through the folders I had organized. He opened each file one by one, quickly skimmed and checked the quantities. The formatting was neat and looked formal enough, and then he completely let his guard down, no longer carefully verifying content. "Turns out you're still so meticulous." He smiled, speaking in a relaxed and casual tone, and proceeded to start extracting key information. "By the way, what was the baseline you set for this round's equity distribution and the dividend mechanism after the funds come in? Cater needs to verify the base figures in advance to avoid any discrepancies at the signing site." My fingertips paused on the keyboard. I turned to him with a puzzled, harmless expression, clearly just going along with the work, casually spouting the already planned generic baseline figures to avoid core secrets. Alan immediately pressed for deeper negotiation bottom lines, funding usage plans, and subsequent project iteration schemes. Every sentence was testing the cards in my hand, trying to uncover all details to facilitate signing and take over the project entirely, voiding all my permissions. I answered all questions with mild, compliant words, seemingly unreserved, but actually only giving trivial superficial information, while quietly waiting for the recording device to capture all his deliberate attempts to obtain secrets and to control the project. During the conversation, Alan pretended to be casual and mentioned, "Actually, you don't have to work so hard. A girl starting a business is exhausting. After this funding round completes and the company is under my management, you can rest at home, and you'll receive half of all profits." This sentence looks affectionate, but it's his ultimate test, aiming to gradually strip me of participation in company operations and control of the project, paving the way for completely kicking me out later. I replied in a bland, non-confrontational way, maintaining an appearance of brainless trust and reliance on him as my girlfriend. At 11 o'clock at night, my best friend Sophia sent a WhatsApp message. She knows the whole starting a business experience with Alan and has always secretly felt that he is not pure-hearted and is too utilitarian. In the message she bluntly reminded me that during the critical financing period, I must safeguard core materials and not entrust everything to Alan, to prevent the possibility of result being stolen. I looked at the screen's kind reminder, did not truthfully disclose all conspiracies and rebirth truths, simply replied to reassure her, glossing over all hidden dangers. If I were to confess everything now, it would disrupt MY, and might leave unnecessary gaps for Alan to seize. After replying, I closed the chat window and wiped all traces of the prompts. By now Alan had finished washing up, lying on the bed browsing industry financing cases and lists of young entrepreneurs who won awards, his eyes full of desire for fame and fortune, a total posture of waiting to rise to the top. I stayed in the study, pretending to organize the concluding materials, but in fact exported the just completed full recording, checking the dialogue details one by one. The recording clearly captured Alan's deliberate attempts to obtain project secrets, his intent to monopolize company operations, and his premeditated plan to sideline me, with complete, logical, and flawless evidence. I renamed the recording file, encrypted it, and backed it up to a private cloud and a dedicated USB drive, stored separately as crucial, ironclad evidence for future counterattacks. After completing all evidence collection, I shut off the recording device, deleted computer operation logs, emptied the recycle bin, and wiped away all traces, ensuring the entire process left no trace. The next morning, daylight spilled into the living room through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Alan woke up very early. The first thing he did after opening his eyes was reach for his phone to check messages. Only after confirming there were no sudden changes from Carter did he feel at ease enough to get up and wash up. While changing clothes, he reminded me, his tone still the naturally gentle and assertive one. "You must finish organizing the documents this morning and send them to me. I'll submit them to the investors at noon. Don't wander off before the contract is signed, stay put at the company on standby. If there are any changes, I'll tell you at once." I stood in front of the mirror, quickly tidying my outfit, replying with a light nod, and there was no sign of anything unusual in my voice. Alan didn't notice my abnormality at all. After breakfast, he drove to the office building, busy coordinating the final financing approval process and sorting through the power grab details, wholly concentrating on the glory that was about to be within reach. From start to finish, he assumed that this apartment, the company project, and all entrepreneurial result were already in the bag, and he luxuriated in everything I had fought for over 2 years. When the gate closed and the elevator descended completely, I immediately dropped the gentle demeanor, dressed in a formal outfit for going out, and carried the apartment lease, my personal ID, and the property registration proof, then went alone to the property center. This high-end apartment adjacent to the company was the core residence I bit the bullet to rent during the early days of my venture. For 2 years, I bore all the expenses myself, down payment, rent every month at a high rate, utilities and property services. Alan had never spent a dime or shared any expenses, yet he lived there year after year, occupying the best living resources, taking advantage of my convenience to focus on his so-called entrepreneurial grind. In my previous life I was expelled, penniless, and forced to leave this place, utterly miserable. This time, I would quietly strip him of all his comfortable confidence at his most triumphant moment and sever all the roots he relied on. The property center was busy with people coming and going. I avoided all familiar faces and went straight to liaise with the exclusive property manager, submitting a lease termination request. The process was smooth throughout. All property rights and leasing ownership remained exclusively mine, requiring no one's consent or signatures. I checked the termination terms item by item, confirmed that the housing facilities were undamaged and there were no outstanding charges, and signed on the spot to confirm the termination, settling all fees, and completely canceling my lease record. From this moment on, the high-end apartment that carried 2 years of hard work and grievance had no connection to me at all. Seizing the moment when the property staff were counting the items in the apartment, I returned to the apartment to quickly pack my personal belongings. I only took my private documents, encrypted USB drive, core documentation drafts, and intimate items. All added furniture, appliances, and daily necessities were abandoned. I didn't waste extra time, and I left behind no traces worth lingering over. The whole operation was efficient and decisive. In just half an hour, I emptied all my personal belongings and completely severed all life traces here. Property staff came to change the door locks, seal up the house, and update the leasing information, all quietly and without revealing anything to the outside world. As I stepped out of the apartment lobby, I completely shed 2 years of shackles. The place I had spent so much money and effort to maintain had never been a witness to our joint struggle. It had always been a stepping stone for me to support and enable his ambitions single-handedly. Now I personally ended it all, clean and decisive, leaving no room for hesitation. I temporarily stored my personal belongings in a city private storage locker, did not return to the company, nor contact Alan, maintaining a low profile and silence throughout. Close to noon, Alan sent a message, his tone urgent and aimed straight at the core objective. "Have you tidied the documents? Send them to me quickly. Carter's side is waiting for the final approval. Don't slow down the process." I looked at the urgent text on the screen, tapped the screen with my fingertips, and replied in a voice that remained gentle and cooperative, perfectly maintaining the original persona. "They're organized. I'll send them later. It won't delay the signing." A simple response that completely dispelled all his doubts. He indeed did not ask about my whereabouts, nor did he notice the anomalies in the apartment. His eyes were filled with the upcoming tens of millions in financing and the easily achievable success. I timed it to perfection and packaged the trimmed-down materials prepared in advance to send over. After receiving them, Alan quickly verified them, saw that the number of files was complete and the formats were orderly, and immediately forwarded them to Carter, with no sign of missing core content throughout. He completely lowered his guard. I clearly knew that Alan at this moment was immersed in a sweet dream. He had already started imagining the life after the financing was secured, quietly planning to replace the bigger mansion, trade in the old car, enter the upper-class social circle, and calculating to completely cut me off from the scene and monopolize all entrepreneurial achievements. He thought he had firmly control of all situations, but he didn't know that I had quietly retrieved my first asset and severed the cozy nest that depended on him for free. His cherished future blueprint began to crumble from this moment on. The stability and confidence he was so proud of had long been quietly stripped away by me without a trace. As night fell, I still did not return to the apartment. Alan sent a message in the middle of the night asking about my whereabouts, and I gave a perfunctory reply that I was out on temporary business matter, coordinating on a project and working through the night to finish. He had no suspicion at all, immersing himself in the joy of about to reach the top, with no time to consider my abnormality. Late at night, Alan finished work as usual, drove back to the apartment, and habitually entered the old password to get in. The door lock immediately gave a cold password error prompt. After several attempts, it still could not be unlocked. He finally sensed something was wrong, thought it was a lock malfunction, and immediately called the property management to inquire. The property management, following the new rules, did not disclose any information, only informing that the lease had been terminated, ownership status updated, and the original residential rights rendered invalid. In the dead of night, the apartment corridor was brightly lit. Alan stood frozen in place, his fingertips repeatedly refreshing the chat interface, sending me several messages in rapid succession. His tone shifted from initial confusion to impatience. I read the questions popping up in the window. After 10 minutes I barely replied that the property management would temporarily rectify the issue and that I was temporarily out, casually brushing the matter aside. That brief two-sentence reassurance instantly calmed the flutter in his heart. With his initial doubts dispelled, Alan immediately retracted his suspicions, treating it as a sudden incident, and he did not once think about me deliberately quitting the lease or secretly plotting. In his eyes, I was always the obedient, compliant girlfriend who indulged him in everything, with no courage or scheming to turn the tables. He quickly regained his composure, no longer fixated on housing arrangements, and he superficially checked into a nearby business hotel for temporary lodging, while his attention remained firmly fixed on the financing signing the next day. I turned off the phone notifications, completely isolating him from my world, sat down at the computer, and worked overnight to finalize all core risk control plans. With only 1 day left before the signing, it was the last window to seal all loopholes and secure the victory. First, I logged into the company's back-end access system, methodically reviewing all vulnerabilities Alan had exploited in the previous life. To facilitate his help with coordination, I had once granted him temporary superuser permissions, allowing him to view, download, and modify ordinary project files. This was the core loophole he later used to tamper with materials and transfer equity. Without hesitation, I cancelled all of Alan's temporary permissions with one click. Closed his backend login port, and deleted all of his device login records, completely sealing off his pathway to alter materials. Next, I reorganized the entire set of project core assets, the underlying core algorithms, exclusive profit models, user data architecture, and the unpublished iterative plans. Every element supporting the project's valuation was re-encrypted and uploaded to an independent offline server, with a unique private key set so that no one besides me could unlock and view it. The redacted materials I had previously sent Alan contained only publicly visible outer frameworks, with no core technology or business secrets. Even if he forwarded them to Carter for repeated study, they could not be stolen, replicated, or brought to fruition. They would utterly become useless waste paper. After handling the online materials, I worked overnight to coordinate with an exclusive practicing lawyer, sending all original project proposals, technical drafts, timestamp logs, and evidence recordings. The lawyer reviewed the evidence chain item by item, confirming that all materials were legally valid and owned clearly, proving that I was the sole original founder of the project. Simultaneously, I finalized the equity and corporate form changes for the next day's signing site. All procedures were pre-filed and approved, awaiting on-site public announcement to take effect. Everything was fully legal and compliant, with no legal loopholes to prevent Alan from later suing, bickering, or seeking accountability. At 2 a.m, Alan sent a message again, his tone restored to confidence and composure. Carter's documents have been reviewed and approved. Tomorrow's signing will use the simplest channel, guaranteed win. You'd better get ready early and come with me to the site, don't be nervous. Between the lines, it was all certainty about reaping the profits. He thought he had acquired the full project documents and could rely on every relationship with the investors, fully convinced he held the upper hand. He had no idea that what he held was merely empty shell. All paths to power had already been blocked by me. I replied with a terse okay, and continued to wrap things up. I checked the company's registration information, tax documents, and project IP certificates one by one, confirming that all original ownership records were exclusively mine. The joint founders' virtual equity from that year was only an internal verbal agreement with no legal filing effect and no entitlement to equity distribution. In the previous life, Alan exploited my lack of understanding of corporate law and my trusting nature, taking advantage of virtual equity loopholes to persuade the on-site investors to recognize his partner status, ultimately seizing power. This time, I shredded every vulnerability he could exploit. I have compiled all intellectual property certificates, official filing receipts, and legal verification documents into a binder and printed and bound them. Dawn breaks over the city, and the entire city wakes up completely. The day of the 2-year project financing signing arrives as scheduled. I tidy up in minimalist formal wear, carrying only the title documents verified in advance by the lawyer and an encrypted USB drive, clearing out all extra personal belongings. All layouts have long been in place and ready. Today there is no need for extra preparations, only to wait for the harvest. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Alan arrives punctually downstairs at the hotel where I am temporarily staying. He wears a refined custom suit, his hair meticulously styled, and his overall state is vigorous and confident, with a look in his eyes that shows undeniable pride. After the small incident last night when the apartment password failed, he has already completely let it go. In his view, this little matter is irrelevant. A multi-million financing deal is right in front of us, and a single apartment is not worth mentioning. When the car window rolls down, he looks at me with a gentle yet firm and determined tone, the same grasping, all-encompassing attitude. Today the scene is more formal, you don't need to be nervous. Just stay with me throughout. I'll handle the signing process, fund coordination, and on-site interviews. You only need to show your face so the investors can see our team is united. I open the car door, seat myself, and respond calmly in a soft voice, "Okay, I'll follow your lead." That simple response completely steadied his mindset. He turns the key, driving smoothly while continuing to sketch out the future, every sentence implicitly signaling his dominance. Once the financing comes in, I'll immediately expand the team, relocate the headquarters, and push the project directly onto the industry's forefront. All future operations and decisions of the company will be under my control. You can rest easy and just enjoy life. This line mirrors the exact rhetoric he used after seizing power in the previous life. First he seizes all my rights, then gradually erases my founder status, and finally monopolizes all result, step by step, with deep scheming. I look straight ahead, remaining silent throughout, offering no rebuttal. The car enters the parking lot of Polyud International Hotel, where the financing signing will be held in the top-floor conference hall. Here gather the core investment teams, industry media, and partner manufacturers. It is a public, transparent industry setting and also the stage Alan carefully selected for his power grab. He is certain that under the watchful eyes of many, as long as the process goes through, there will be no room for my comeback. After getting out, Alan naturally reaches out to hold my wrist, affectionate in posture, deliberately creating the image of a couple who share the same fate and start a business together. Along the way, industry professionals and investment staff who have arrived early will proactively step forward to greet and connect with him, speaking calmly and taking the spotlight. Everyone's eyes are on him, praising him as young and capable, and naturally complimenting me as gentle, sensible, and fully supporting my boyfriend's career. Facing everyone's stereotypes, I always wear a light smile, no argument, no clarification, fully playing the role of the dependent. After entering and taking seats, the investment liaison Carter comes forward, shaking hands warmly with Alan. The two exchange glances that conceal a tacit understanding, brief conversations all revolving around the signing process, secretly confirming that the power grab plan is flawless. Carter's peripheral gaze glances over me with disdain, and he never engages with me at all, having already deemed me a minor, irrelevant accessory. Alan shifts closer to me and whispers softly, his tone carrying an unwavering authority. "During the signing, you won't need to participate. I'll handle everything. If anyone asks about project details on site, you respond briefly and avoid saying too much or making mistakes that could disrupt the rhythm." I nod lightly and comply, I understand. Exquisite obedience completely dispels Alan and Carter's last shred of caution. They are convinced that from start to finish I am just a naive, dependent girlfriend with no ability to turn the situation around, and today's victory is already a given. The venue lights are bright and orderly. Staff members proceed to lay out the agreement documents, public boards, and filming equipment. The media position is fully in place, awaiting the official start of the ceremony, recording the so-called Alan's entrepreneurial god moment. Alan sits upright on the side, his back straight, eyes confident, fingertips gently tapping the desk, already savoring the sense of achievement that comes with the world's attention. He keeps flipping through the trimmed-down data in his hand, finally confirming the process once more, eagerly anticipating the moment when he will control tens of millions in assets and rise to the top of the industry. I sit quietly by his side, my expression calm and steady. Under the desk, my phone receives a message from the lawyer. The changes of legal entity and the full transfer of equity have all been finally verified and can be publicly announced to take effect on-site at any time. At 11 in the morning, the host took the stage on time and declared that the financing signing ceremony had officially begun. The venue fell silent in an instant, and all media lenses and the eyes of the present guests focused on the main signing position. According to the announced process in advance, the project founder liaison and signing party were Alan. The host, holding the cue, described Alan as the core founder of the project and the actual controller of the company, with not a single word mentioning my name throughout. The applause from the audience rose. Alan stood up gracefully, lowered his hand in a poised and confident gesture, and perfectly absorbed all the praise. He tidied his suit sleeves and walked slowly toward the signing desk, each step steady and flamboyant, his eyes carrying absolute certainty of victory. Carter and the investment party sat at the head table, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth, quietly waiting for the deal to be inked. The two had privately colluded long ago. Once the agreement was signed, the multi-million financing would be deposited immediately, the company ownership would be completely settled, and all of my hard work would belong entirely to them. Staff members lined up the financial agreement for signing and the pens on the signing desk, and the camera zoomed in, ready to record this so-called moment of entrepreneurial glory. Alan leaned forward to stand, his fingertips gripping the pen, his gaze scanning the agreement terms without a hint of hesitation, directly aiming for the signature and date, ready to sign. The room held its breath. No one noticed any anomaly. Everyone assumed that today's winner was him. Just as the nib was about to touch the paper, a calm male voice suddenly rang out through the hall, precisely interrupting the entire process. "Sorry. Signing is paused. There are court disputes over the ownership of the signing party. The agreement does not meet the conditions to take effect." My exclusive lawyer White pushed the door open, holding a full set of notarized documents, and walked steadily toward the center of the venue. Accompanying staff members carried the business registration returns, intellectual property ownership certificates, and the project's original drafts, neatly displayed on the podium. The sudden turn of events plunged the entire venue into dead silence. All applause, shutter sounds, and conversations ceased. Everyone's attention instantly shifted to the arriving legal team. Alan, standing at the signing desk with the pen, stiffened suddenly. The tip hovered above the paper, his face turning blank. He glanced up at the incoming lawyers, a look of arrogance and composure vanishing, replaced by a moment of unprepared panic. Carter's expression also hardened in an instant, his body leaning slightly forward, his eyes sharp and taut, with none of the earlier relaxed confidence. Before either of them could react, White directly projected the full set of business change filings onto the venue's giant display. The high-definition screen clearly revealed all company records, each item refreshed. The latest business registration information, corporate legal person, and shareholding structure were laid out plainly, the company's wholly owned subsidiary, the sole legal representative, and the project's sole founder ownership. There was only one name throughout, the one I use. The screen also displayed the change records, and all procedures were legal, compliant, and auditable. It had been formally reviewed and publicly announced the day before signing. The company was now completely owned by me as a sole proprietor, with no equity or any authority resting under Alan. And he had no legal connection to this company or project any longer. The room erupted in shock. Industry guests, media reporters, and partner manufacturers were all stunned, whispering to one another, instantly understanding this sudden earth-shattering reversal. The expected men's protagonist moment had instantly turned into a naked power grab farce. Alan stood at the signing desk, his body rigid, the color draining from his face in an instant. He fixated on the public notice on the screen, his pupils trembling as he could not believe what he was seeing. He repeatedly confirmed the shareholding structure, corporate information, and the timing of the changes. Every detail completely shattered his dream. The multi-million financing he boasted about, the easily attainable career glory, and the 2-year plan to seize power all evaporated into nothing at this moment. "This is impossible." Alan spoke no more, his tone something between panic and unease, voice trembling slightly. "Equity isn't like this. I am a co-founder. I have legitimate equity qualifications. This disclosure is fake." In the scramble to maintain his composed elegance, he could no longer keep up the pretense, publicly arguing and breaking the hall's deadly silence. White produced on the spot an official stamped business registration receipt, intellectual property notarization, original project filing records, and year-by-year creation timestamps, presenting them item by item as evidence. All documents clearly prove that the so-called co-founder equity is nothing more than an oral agreement with no legal effect, never entered into the business registry, and lacking any qualification for rights confirmation. Every piece of evidence on stage shredded Alan's last shred of luck. Carter's face turned ashen, and he immediately glared angrily at Alan. The reason he dared to collude privately and firmly aim for a power grab was his belief that Alan held the company's legitimate ownership. Now the ownership has completely reversed. Not only the financing contract cannot be fulfilled, but investors nearly got drawn into this ownership dispute, unavoidably bearing all the risks. Alan was utterly panicked. The voices of discussion across the venue layered upon one another, the media's lenses locked onto Alan as he faltered, the shutter clamor rising densely, capturing every moment of his pale, panicked expression. What was originally his moment of glory in the hot search had now become a brutal record of his downfall. Driven to the edge, Alan tore off all his gentle facades. He spun around abruptly, facing the guests and the media, raised his hand toward me, his tone harsh and furious, deliberately stoking the on-site public opinion. Everyone! This is malicious power grab. This is betrayal. This company is the result of the two of us working hard for 2 years. I was involved in every stage of the project's refinement, market liaison, and financing negotiations. By what right did she secretly change the corporate entity and equity and monopolize all the result? His voice rose, every word sharp, attempting to portray himself as a founder who was betrayed by a partner, to pressure the on-site public opinion to force me to compromise and retreat, to compel investors to pause cooperation and redefine ownership. Many outside guests who were not in the know looked hesitant, their eyes shifting to me with curiosity and watchfulness. Carter seized the moment, his expression steady, and spoke with pressure in his tone. Your company's ownership has suddenly changed, presenting serious cooperation risks. If we cannot clarify the co-creation facts, we will terminate this financing. The two echoed each other, one playing the victim to gain sympathy, the other using financing as blackmail, attempting to force my concession in the most brutal way, replaying the same power grab playbook as in the previous life. I rose slowly, my posture upright, facing the audience, unshaken. Before Alan could continue his evasive defense, I gestured for the lawyer to play the audio evidence. The venue's speakers immediately broadcast a clear, pristine recording, precisely all the dialogue I had saved in advance. Every word of Alan's attempt to extract core project data, probe the financing negotiation floor, plot to marginalize me, and monopolize all company gains was clearly echoed throughout the entire conference hall. In the recording, he plainly admitted his plan to take over the company after signing the contract, gradually erasing my founder status, externally monopolizing all entrepreneurial credit, and even privately comforting me as a facade while having already decided to seize control. The sound was authentic, the context complete, with no sign of editing, causing the victim image he had just crafted to collapse instantly. The room fell silent in an instant, all hesitant gazes turning sharp, all fixed on Alan, seeing through his hypocritical true colors. Alan's face drained of color, his lips pale, his entire body stiff as he stood at the signing podium, utterly unable to speak in his defense. All disguises, all feigned pity, all excuses are laid bare in the face of the complete chain of evidence. The on-site public opinion completely reverses. Guests who had been watching just now suddenly realize, quietly discussing this meticulously planned scam, marveling at Alan's deep scheming and despicable means. Media reporters instantly switched the wind direction, focusing the camera on the evidence on the screen, quickly recording the on-site truth, the prepared press release all invalidated, replaced by explosive news material about the entrepreneur premeditating to steal his girlfriend's achievements and publicly tumbling. Carter's complexion is deathly pale, his aura chillingly cold. It is only then that he fully understands he has been deceived by Alan from start to finish. The other party does not actually control the company ownership, but is merely empty-handedly trying to win big by leveraging the investor's power to snatch someone's achievements, dragging the entire investment team into a risk of ownership dispute. I cast a calm, cool glance at the utterly defeated Alan, my tone steady yet with absolute crushing inevitability. In entrepreneurship, you speak with strength. You have no creation, no contribution, no ownership. How can there be a co-create? It's not that I betrayed my own word, but that you schemed to plunder and brought about your own destruction. The hall buzzed with discussions, and every gaze stabbed at Alan like a needle. His upright spine finally collapsed. His hands clenched so hard the knuckles turned white, and the calm and pride on his face vanished, leaving only embarrassment and fear. Carter broke the silence first, his expression gravely severe. As the head of a seasoned investor group, he detests partnerships with ownership disputes and deliberate fraud. Alan's private collusion and deliberate concealment not only wasted the team's extensive research and liaison costs but also risked the project with legal exposure worth millions. He spoke up on the spot, his voice cold and decisive, leaving no room for mercy. After on-site verification, this project's ownership is clear and exclusively belongs to the founder. Mr. Alan has no legal holdings, positions, or creative qualifications. There is deliberate fraud and intentional misrepresentation of the partner. We immediately terminate all ties with Alan, and all collaboration and liaison only pertain to the legitimate legal entity of the project. That sentence completely killed the situation, severing the last possibility of Alan riding piggyback on capital for status. I stepped forward to seize the floor, initiating a full-scale liquidation. No extra emotion, only presenting facts and rules, advancing step by step to thoroughly eliminate all hidden dangers. Here, I formally issue 3 liquidation notices, all notarized by lawyers and with full legal effect. First, completely revoke all temporary assistance permissions and internal collaboration identities for Alan. From today, he has no labor service, equity, or collaboration connection with our company or this project. He has no right to conduct any activities in the company's name, and all externally claimed co-creation identities are null and void. As the words fell, the lawyer simultaneously publicized the on-site business registration cancellation records, making the entire process open and transparent, so that all industry professionals, media, and partners present could witness every step, preventing Alan from later bluffing with a comeback. Second, pursue accountability for violations. I projected the company's financial flows and expense records onto the screen, with clear details laid out before everyone. Over the past 6 months, Alan used temporary work permissions to privately misappropriate small sums of petty cash for personal use, repeatedly posing as project liaison, privately engaging small outsourcing orders, and stealing company resources for personal gain. Every transaction, every liaison record, every violation, time, amount, purpose, was clearly traceable and irrefutable. All misappropriated funds must be fully repaid to the company within 3 days. If payments are not made on time, we will pursue judicial accountability and legally recover the funds, and hold him liable for appropriating company assets. Alan's pupils dilated, his face ashen, and his lips trembled as he wanted to speak in his defense, but there was no room for argument. He thought those minor actions would go unnoticed, but he didn't realize they had already been recorded and stored the whole time, becoming a heavy basis for liquidating him. Third, purge internal hidden dangers. I publicly announced the list and cleaned out 2 part-time employees whom Alan had previously placed inside the company as eyes and ears. These 2 were intentionally placed to steal project progress and relay internal information, aiding his power grab plan. I declared their permanent dismissal and blacklisting in industry records on the spot, and informed all upstream and downstream partners to prevent these 2 from continuing to leverage industry resources or steal project information, thoroughly clearing the company of all internal instability. Layer by layer, liquidation after liquidation, we crushed Alan's remaining avenues from 4 dimensions: identity, funds, connections, and industry resources. After completing all notices, I turned to Carter, my tone steady and professional, returning to normal cooperative posture. The project's core technology, business model, and intellectual property are all complete and compliant, ownership is clear with no disputes, and all prior hidden dangers have been thoroughly eliminated. We are willing to continue the financing cooperation process and accept your due diligence verification. Carter's expression softened, and he nodded in approval immediately. Capital remains loyal to value and compliance. My clean, decisive liquidation has instead completely reassured the investors, who increasingly recognize the project's prospects and the founder's capabilities. The media camera followed the entire liquidation process, and the wind direction reversed completely. What was originally anticipated as the gossip of a romantic partners turning against each other became a positive industry news story about a female founder fighting hard to defend her rights and purge office parasites. The financing signing ceremony smoothly concluded after clearing away all upheavals. I and Carter completed another round of detailed coordination, fixed the due diligence timing and disbursement node, with a smooth full process and efficient communication. The investor team fully let go of their concerns and gave extremely high evaluations for the project valuation and future development. People in the venue left one after another. The media team hurried to file after shooting all the footage, preparing to publish the latest industry news. In just a few hours, the incident where Alan plotted to seize power and fraudulently cooperated had already spread within a small circle of the industry, and those who know the inside story sighed in awe, with no one offering sympathy. The crowd dispersed, and the empty conference hall remained with only Alan. He still stood there stiffly, exhausted, the madness and confidence in his eyes completely wiped out, leaving only overwhelming unwillingness and panic. 2 years of planning, zero in one night. Not only did he fail to steal the project or ascend to the top of the industry, but he ended up ruined, in debt, and banned by the industry, completely reduced to a joke within the circle. I packed up the documents and prepared to leave. Just as I reached the exit, urgent footsteps suddenly followed from behind. Alan rushed in front of me, tearing apart all dignity, his posture utterly awkward. He blocked my way, his tone urgent yet humble, completely devoid of the previous arrogance and scheming. I was wrong, I really know I was wrong. I was greedy and confused for a moment, which is why I did these things. I never really meant to hurt you. We've been together for 2 years, endured the hardest days of starting a business together. You can't treat me like this. He lowered his head, admitting his fault. Deliberately bringing up past memories, trying to use 2 years of romantic involvement to earn forgiveness, hoping I would revoke the liquidation, drop the charges, and give him a way out. I did not stop my steps, sidestepping his obstruction with a cold, decisive movement. All the shared hardships and fake martyrdom in the past were just his disguise for relying on me, draining me, and waiting to plunder me, hardly worth mentioning. Seeing my indifference, Alan's emotions completely broke, his tone suddenly sharp, turning from abject plea to moral coercion. You're successful now, and you turn your back and deny me? Without my help in connecting resources and seizing the market, your project wouldn't be where it is today. You now monopolize all the achievements, heartlessly ruining me. Aren't you too cold-blooded and ungrateful? The words twisting right and wrong were his last struggle. He tried to forcibly bind the co-creation identity, packaging his deliberate plundering as joint hard work, twisting my legitimate rights to protection into perfidy and ingratitude. I looked at him with a calm gaze, my voice steady and unruffled, every word piercing his lie. The core development, architecture building, project initiation, and cash advances were all completed by me alone. Your so-called resource raising and market connectivity were simply misappropriated my result project to build your network and line your own pockets. All the evidence is publicly verifiable. Your so-called contributions have always been nothing more than parasitism and theft. One sentence left him speechless, his face alternately pale and pale, unable to argue further. When public pleas for reconciliation failed, Alan completely abandoned all dignity and began privately harassing me non-stop. I drove away from the hotel. He followed in his own car, tailing closely, repeatedly forcing dangerous close calls to stop my vehicle. I stayed calm and drove straight to a high-end business district's underground parking with tight security, using the exclusive access to shake off his pursuit. That night, Alan began bombarding my WhatsApp and phone like crazy. Dozens of messages, dozens of calls in quick succession, sometimes humbly apologizing and seeking reconciliation, other times furious and threatening, with extreme mood swings, showing his obsession and madness. Seeing that I did not reply or answer, he panicked completely, starting to maliciously defame me in niche industry circles and among acquaintances, turning things upside down to claim I betrayed trust, monopolized the results, and suppressed my partner, attempting to smear my reputation through public opinion and force me to compromise actively. Overnight, scattered negative rumors quietly spread, and many acquaintances who did not understand the truth privately messaged to inquire about the situation. In response to his crude counterattacks, I did not argue privately, nor did I show any mercy or compromise. I followed the formal process to resolve it completely. I had the team compile the full chain of evidence, including draft manuscripts, audio recordings, chat screenshots, records of financial irregularities, on-site settlement public notices, and then standardized formatting for filing and released an official clarification statement. The statement is well organized and the evidence is conclusive, fully restoring all facts: Allen's plotting to seize power, fraudulent capital, embezzlement, and smear campaigns. It also synchronized all progress on industry blacklists and judicial recourse. Before real evidence, all rumors collapse of their own weight. People within the circle who know the ins and outs will clearly see the truth, despise Allen's despicable conduct, and cut off all contact with him entirely. Meanwhile, I submitted the surveillance footage of the entire stalking, harassment, and intimidation for evidence to the police, officially preventing all his further harassment. Staff, in accordance with regulations, issued a warning to Allen, clearly informing him to stop all stalking, entanglement, and denigration, with violations being immediately pursued. The police-initiated warning consultation has completely locked in Allen's ability to rebound. Under the official warning of accountability, he dares not stalk, harass by phone, or spread rumors publicly. All forms of malicious harassment have been forced to halt. With no way out, he has lost all levers to balance me and can only passively endure the repercussions of his own actions. Once the turmoil subsided, I devoted myself fully to restructuring the company and implementing projects, thoroughly clearing all hidden risks. I immediately restarted the team restructuring, removing all the idle personnel Allen had previously inserted, clearing all unstable internal networks, and rebuilding a professional, efficient, clean new operations team. The entire team consists of industry veterans with clear divisions of labor in technology, operations, marketing, and legal affairs, with high execution power, finally bidding farewell to the past chaotic, loosely connected startup state full of hidden dangers. Meanwhile, the investor Carter team completed a comprehensive due diligence. Throughout the verification, project ownership is 100% clear, core technology is a complete closed loop, with no disputes, no loopholes, and no infringement risks. Clean and transparent qualifications, solid technical barriers, and a clear profit model gave the investors complete confidence, leading to a multi-million financing quickly landing in the company's corporate account. Once the funds were in place, the company's development entered the fast lane. With ample cash flow in hand, I rapidly advanced product iterations, market deployment, and channel expansion. Relying on complete core technology and precise market positioning, after launch the project quickly captured the track, user data surged daily, partner manufacturers proactively approached for collaboration, and industry resources continually gravitated toward the company. In just a few days, the company's valuation continued to rise, from an initial startup project to a benchmark for a black icon in the industry. Several mainstream media outlets proactively conducted on-site interviews, and industry conferences frequently extended invitation to speak. As the sole founder and legal representative, I stood firmly at the forefront of the industry, completely establishing a professional reputation for myself and the company. Within the circle, everyone knows this is an original project that started from zero, independently fought, and hard-faced rights protection. All glory and strength belong to me alone. By contrast, Allen's situation became increasingly precarious, hitting rock bottom with no room to turn around. The industry already blacklisted his name, and all partners, networks, and entrepreneurial circles removed him from the list. The industry connections he once used to climb social ladders and build circles are now avoided. No one is willing to engage with the entrepreneur of poor conduct and who steals others' result. My legal team formally initiated the recovery process, pursuing him for the misuse of company funds. The court accepted the case, service of process was delivered, and once the judgment takes effect, he will not only have to return the full amount but also leave civil dispute records, seriously affecting his personal credit and future qualifications to work. The carefully cultivated entrepreneurial persona and the gentle boyfriend persona he built for 2 years have completely collapsed. All past deceit and scheming remain accessible online, becoming an indelible stain. The mansion, luxury cars, and high-end circle life he once fantasized about have all shattered, replaced by debt, accountability, and a life of systemic bans. Stripped of all reliance, he has neither technology, nor resources, nor a team, nor a reputation, utterly losing the capital to stand in the industry. Even entry-level startup positions, no company dares to hire or cooperate with him. Occasionally hearing industry rumors, he wanders around for humble jobs, seeking shelter, but repeatedly hitting walls, forced to take scattered part-time work just to get by, the gap between reality and his fantasies painfully wide. I have not spent a moment of effort paying attention to his predicament. True suppression is not about deliberate oppression, but about my steady rise to the top while he remains trapped in the mud, with no hope of ever getting out. I will continue to optimize the company's business model, finalize several top-tier long-term collaborations, complete a new round of technical iterations, and solidify our leadership in the industry track. The company continues to expand, its office space has been fully upgraded, and the team's combat effectiveness has been continuously improved, resulting in a rapid and vigorous development trend. The autumn wind brushes against the brand-new office building's glass floor-to-ceiling windows, which reflect the city's bustling commercial district. Half a month later, my company officially moved into a core CBD Grade A office, bidding farewell to the cramped, shabby startup studio and completing a comprehensive leap in scale. The new office offers broad views and an open layout. The entire set of modern office equipment is in place. With a sound team structure, stable capital support, and a mature project system, the company now firmly stands on the track of the industry. Standing in front of the window overlooking the city, I shed the cowardice, forbearance, and concessions of my previous life, leaving only the steadiness and certainty to control the overall situation. In this rebirth, I did not rely on any luck to overturn fate. I relied on meticulous planning, tearing apart the tragedy scripts others tailored for me with my own hands. The legal department delivered the final verdict: Alan embezzled company funds, and the case was firmly concluded. The court found the facts clear and the evidence conclusive, ordering him to repay all funds in full and to bear all litigation costs. The civil case record will remain for life, his personal credit severely damaged, and he is restricted in housing loans, car loans, professional qualifications, and business collaborations, effectively closing off all his future paths for entrepreneurship and employment. He once coveted unearned gains, stealing 2 years of my hard work, but in the end he gained nothing and instead incurred debts and a stain on his reputation, becoming a cast-off in the industry. The latest industry blacklist in the circle was updated, Alan's name was permanently recorded, and all legitimate companies, startup platforms, and investment institutions share the blacklist. Even the most basic industry positions no longer had any team willing to accept him, trust him, or collaborate with him. A former acquaintance from the old circle told me he was completely at the end of his rope. He refused to concede defeat, lowering himself several times, reaching out to all old connections to apologize and seek help, even attempting to use past romantic relationships to gain sympathy, hoping I would relent and drop the charges and lift the ban. But no one paid heed to his remorse and excuses. Everyone saw clearly his hypocritical selfish nature and deliberate predation, and no one was willing to waste their resources on someone whose conduct was rotten and who betrayed trust. The gentle persona and entrepreneurial image he once cultivated have now become blades that cut at his own flesh. The extreme contrast completely shattered his mindset. He used to be glamorous and confident, sure he would reach the top of the industry and reap fame and profit. Now he can only drift through low-level part-time jobs, barely making ends meet, plagued by debt, accountability, and endless remorse, living every day in ruin and torment. This is the ending he deserved. All the consequences are of his own making, unrelated to me, and there is no compassion due. I never took pleasure in annihilating him. I simply took back everything that belonged to me and protected the life that should have been mine. It was his greed and calculation that pushed him into the abyss. Meanwhile, my career has been soaring. Tens of millions in financing all came to fruition, projects iterated and optimized through multiple rounds, and the entire upstream and downstream supply chain was successfully connected. Market share continues to climb, keeping a top position in the niche track. The company completed its first brand upgrade. signed high-quality strategic partners, won industry innovation awards, and received in-depth coverage in mainstream media. As the sole founder and legal representative, I publicly appeared at major industry summits, shared original entrepreneurial experiences, and earned widespread industry recognition and goodwill, firmly establishing myself as a rising, capable entrepreneur within the circle. I am no longer anyone's appendage, no longer anyone's backing, and I will never be someone else's stepping stone to success. I have built my own business map with my own hands, holding capital, technology, a team, and resources, confident and in full control of my life and career. My best friend Sophia often sighs that this rebirth and turnaround was achieved by my calmness and decisiveness, which forcibly reclaimed everything I deserved. After shedding the romance brain, letting go of the dependency mindset, and focusing on self-growth, my life clears the fog and I move toward the sun. Looking back at the previous life, I gave everything, sacrificed relentlessly, compromised and exhausted myself, and ultimately ended with nothing but wounds, meeting a tragic abrupt end. In this life, I am sober, independent, decisive, measured in my plans, and unyielding, protecting my original intention and achievements, winning fame and freedom. I took away the soft illusion of depending on others with my own hands. I crushed the long-waited plunder scheme with my own hands. I settled all hidden dangers and malice with my own hands, and I climbed to the peak that belongs to me. The most refreshing revenge in the world is not about deliberately suppressing opponents, but about completely shedding internal strife, helping the best version of myself flourish, so that those who once schemed to plunder you will forever look up at your height, forever be trapped in the muddy bottom, and have no qualification to chase or cling again. The storm subsides, the dust settles. The old false bonds are cut off, all plots and schemes come to an end, all grievances and dissatisfaction are released. I was reborn from despair, turned the tables from a hidden position, and concluded at the pinnacle, completely mastering a brilliant life that belongs to me.